We hear about AI learning all the time, but what does that actually mean? It's not about just memorizing a bunch of facts. It's really about trial and error. Making a mistake, dusting yourself off, and just trying again.
Okay, think back for a second. How did you learn to ride a bike? I bet you didn't just read a book about it and then suddenly know how to do it. It was a process, right?
You probably wobbled a lot. Maybe you scraped a knee or two. You fell down, but you got back on, you tweaked your balance, and you tried again. And you did that over and over until eventually something just clicked and you were off.
And believe it or not, that whole messy, brilliant trial and error process, well, that is almost exactly how some of the most powerful AIs in the world learn how to do new things. It's all about learning from your mistakes.
So to really wrap our heads around this, let's use an even simpler idea. Let's think about teaching a dog a new trick.
Now, in the world of AI, this has a fancy name. It's called reinforcement learning. And it's all about a machine figuring out how to do something just by messing around in its environment, through, you guessed it, trial and error.
The key here is that the system, or the agent as they call it, isn't just given a list of correct answers. Nope. Instead, it just tries stuff and gets feedback. It gets a reward if it does something good and a penalty if it does something bad. Basically, a treat or a scolding.
All right, let's move on and see how this actually builds into a formal process. Because while it feels pretty intuitive, this learning loop has some very specific parts that make it all work.
So here it is, the core loop. First, you've got the agent. That's our dog, the system that's trying to learn. The agent is hanging out in an environment. Let's call it the park. And in that park, the agent takes an action, like, say, trying to fetch a stick. Then, based on that action, it gets a reward, like a treat for bringing the stick back. This super simple loop of agent, environment, action, and reward, well, that's the engine behind all of this.
Now, this whole thing leads to a constant dilemma for the agent. Should it explore? That's kind of like our dog sniffing around, trying out new paths to maybe find a faster way to get the stick. Or should it exploit? That's the dog just sticking to the path it already knows works, the one that for sure gets it a treat. And balancing that, exploration versus exploitation, is one of the biggest challenges in AI.
Okay, so the theory makes sense. But where are these digital dogs actually learning their digital tricks out in the wild? Well, the applications are pretty much all around us.
A perfect example is AlphaGo. It wasn't programmed with the best strategies for playing the game of Go. Instead, it was just told the rules, and then it played against itself millions and millions of times. Through pure trial and error, getting rewarded for moves that led to a win and penalized for moves that led to a loss, it discovered strategies no human had ever even thought of, and it became the best player on the planet. And this goes way beyond board games. Robots use the same idea to figure out how to get around a cluttered room or how to pick up something they've never seen before. Self-driving cars use it to learn safe driving habits. And in video games, it's used to create those non-player characters, NPCs, that can actually learn from how you play and adapt to be a tougher opponent. So we can teach an AI to win a game, or to get around a room, or drive a car. The goal is pretty clear, right? Win the game, don't crash. But how do you teach an AI something that's way more subjective? Like, how do you teach it to just be helpful or even polite?
Well, get this. This is the big aha moment. That same basic idea of rewards and penalties is exactly how large language models like ChatGPT were trained to be useful conversational partners instead of just, spitting out random unfiltered junk from the internet.
It's a specific method called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF for short. And what's so cool about it is that instead of the reward being a simple number like points in a game, the reward signal comes from actual people. Human trainers looked at a bunch of different AI-generated answers and were just asked, hey, which one of these is better? Which one feels more helpful?
So the developers set the goal using three pretty simple principles, sometimes called the 3 H's. They wanted the AI's answers to be helpful, harmless, and honest. And these pretty fuzzy concepts became the target for the AI to aim for, based entirely on what we, the humans, preferred.
And that really shows you the key shift. In classic reinforcement learning, the reward is objective. You either won the game or you didn't. Simple. But with RLHF, the reward becomes subjective. It's not about being correct, like in a math problem. It's about being preferred by a person. And that allows the AI to learn all the nuances of what we think makes a good answer.
But here's the thing that's really important to get.
This training process isn't over. Not at all. It's happening right now, and you're actually a part of it.
Think about when you're using chatbots or AI assistants. You know those little thumbs up and thumbs down icons you see next to the answers? Yeah, those aren't just for decoration.
Every single time you click one of those buttons, you're sending a feedback signal. You're telling the AI, hey, this was a good response, or nope, this was a bad one. In that exact moment, you are reinforcing its behavior. You're giving it a little digital treat or a scolding, and you're continuing the exact same training that started with just trying to teach a dog.
Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final question, doesn't it? We started this whole thing talking about learning to ride a bike, and we've ended up here with millions of us all over the world acting as trainers for these incredibly powerful systems every single day. So, if we're all the trainers, what kind of AI are we all together teaching it to become?